Why has this taken so long?
I think City have been quite calm about this. I think they've been quite confident of getting this over the line. But in terms of the selling club, Leipzig, they're not a known club like selling players. You know, they're quite wealthy as a football club. And also they lost Dominic Szoboszlai to Liverpool only a few weeks ago for around £60 million. So it's probably taken a bit longer. And of course, like we said yesterday, Mike, when clubs go on pre-season tours, sometimes they're prepared to wait a little bit. I'm sure there was confidence within the Manchester City camp that this was going to happen. But this is a big signing. Gvardiol has really impressed. He looks a really top-class player. He's still very young as well. I think the only blemish is maybe like Lionel Messi playing so well against him at the World Cup, but he's Lionel Messi at the end of the day. Yeah. So I think it's a very good signing for Man City.
What is going to be interesting is whether there are going to be any departures in that area for Manchester City now, because if you look at someone like Aymeric Laporte, he and Ruben Diaz were the first choice partnership not so long ago. But last season, Aymeric Laporte found his first team opportunities quite limited. If you look at the stats, 11 Premier League starts, 3 starts in the FA Cup, 3 starts in the Champions League, 3 starts in the League Cup. In total, 20 starts for Aymeric Laporte in all competitions for Manchester City. So if you were to look at it on stats alone, given his game time was limited and someone like Gvardiol was not going to come in as a reserve centre-back, you would think that his game time would be limited even more if he was to stay. I just wonder now whether Aymeric Laporte will look at it himself and go to City and say, look, maybe it's time for me to move on, and let's see if there is interest in him, because still a fantastic player. Oh. I'm sure he'd get into many teams and get much more regular first-team football than he was at Manchester City last season, and potentially would get with Gvardiol's arrival next season.
Absolutely. Well, he's already indicated he wants to go, and they've got a left-sided centre-back like he is. I want to talk Man United now, Darmish. Rasmus Højlund again. Been reported elsewhere, medical done, all done. That's not actually the case, is it?
No, we reported yesterday that the medical had begun. I've since been told that it was the initial testing that took place yesterday. The main part of his medical has been taking place today. Now, sometimes the medical can take 1 or 2 days, so it's not necessarily the case that he will complete his medical today, but it will be done 24, 48 hours. That's normally how long it does take. And then a formal announcement of his transfer from Atalanta is expected by the end of the week. And I'm told he could potentially be presented to the Old Trafford crowd on Saturday for their pre-season friendly against Lens. Remember, they've got another pre-season friendly against Athletic Bilbao on Sunday. It'll be interesting to see if he can play a part in either of those 2 games. Just a quick reminder, as if you needed reminding, of the actual deal. £64 million initial payment United will pay Atalanta, £8 million in performance-related add-ons. He'll sign a 5-year contract with United holding the option of a further 12 months.
Harry Maguire. Are we any closer to knowing where he's going to be playing his football next season?
As it stands, I think Erik ten Hag is planning for Harry Maguire to be in the Manchester United squad next season. He's still considered a key player, a top player and a key member of that squad. We do know what has happened in the close season, where he's no longer the captain of Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes has taken on that role. It would be interesting to see, if the offers start coming in, what United will do. We know that West Ham United went in with a £20 million offer. That was rejected out of hand by Manchester United. And we are told that West Ham are still considering whether to go back in with an improved offer. It should be said that United are not pushing Harry Maguire out of the door, because, as I said, they still see him as a key member. But they, I think, would consider offers they believe reflect fair market value. And the £20 million that West Ham offered in their first offer was simply not fair market value as far as United were concerned.
His conduct, though, after all this, his statement was well written. He's then gone on tour and he's played in a few games. The spotlight seems to be on him in a few games as well. There was that clip of Onana sort of shouting at him. But it sounds like he's conducted himself well. Every time we hear from Erik ten Hag, he speaks highly of him. You do wonder, if United don't get an acceptable fee for him, potentially will Manchester United maybe wait in January? This is a huge year for him as well, with the Euros coming up next year as well. But look, he can still be a leader without the armband, and you've seen the way he's dealt with the omission from the captaincy over the last few weeks. I'm sure Erik ten Hag will acknowledge that.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Arsenal are the Premier League's biggest spenders so far this summer. They're in action tonight. They play Monaco. Kick-off at 6 o'clock at the Emirates. We can go there now. James Green is there for us. James, very good evening. Now, we understand Arsenal have got a few injuries. Any early indications of any team news?
Yeah, the team news is in, and some very good news for Arsenal fans travelling to the Emirates Stadium today is that they will get a first chance of seeing new signing Declan Rice in an Arsenal shirt here at the Emirates Stadium. He is starting tonight. He's recovered from the knock he picked up in training on the US tour. He missed the last pre-season game against Barcelona, so Arsenal fans will see Declan Rice here. They'll also see Jurrien Timber. He's starting the game. Kai Havertz has got a place on the bench, so I'm sure they'll see him make an appearance at some point. Aaron Ramsdale starting in goal. Matt Turner, the reserve goalkeeper, is on the bench. He is heavily linked with a move to Nottingham Forest at the moment. That might then start a little bit of a conveyor belt where Arsenal could formalise their interest in Brentford goalkeeper David Raya. David Raya into his final year of his Brentford contract. Thomas Frank and Brentford standing firm that they want to receive a fee of around £40 million for the goalkeeper. But it seems like Arsenal's spending is not yet finished in this transfer window, so we'll have to wait and see. I know they need to move plenty of players on. Mikel Arteta said the squad size, 30 players, is currently unsustainable. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to do that. But tonight it is the final pre-season preparation for Arsenal before the Community Shield on Sunday against Manchester City, and then a week Saturday it's their Premier League opener against Nottingham Forest. But tonight, the game against Monaco, the Emirates Cup, will have a guest of honour. And this man behind me, Arsene Wenger, will be in attendance. So he is the guest of honour, and I'm sure he's going to receive a big warm welcome from the whole of the Emirates crowd. But the anticipation, the excitement is building around the Emirates Stadium for the new season coming. As you can hear, the fans are ready, they're ready with their voice, and they're excited for the season to start.
James Green, that's when you go on with the live just a little bit too long. James, thank you very much. He got nailed. He set us up really nicely there, though, Dharmesh. He talked about the goalkeeping situation. Ramsdale starts tonight. What's your understanding of what Arsenal are going to do?
Yeah, as it stands, Aaron Ramsdale, the number one, Matt Turner, the number two to Aaron Ramsdale, and it shows he's starting. Turner is on the bench. But we're told that Arsenal are still exploring that deal for the Brentford keeper, David Raya, as James alluded to there. Now, the interest in Raya, we think, could be formalised once there is a degree of certainty about the potential transfer of Matt Turner to Nottingham Forest. Now, we know that Forest remain in talks with Arsenal over the signing of Turner, and we know and we think that Forest want to bring in two new goalkeepers. If you think about what happened last season, they had Dean Henderson in, and in January he got a serious thigh injury, so he missed the rest of the season. It was still during the transfer window, so they managed to bring in Keylor Navas. And effectively, Dean Henderson and Keylor Navas, that's two goalkeepers Forest had in their squad last season, are no longer in their squad. So it's easy to see why they would want to bring in two keepers. Matt Turner is one, and discussions are ongoing with Manchester United over the loan with the potential obligation of a return for Dean Henderson, who has recovered very, very well from that thigh surgery that he had in May following that injury in January. So Arsenal still exploring that deal for Raya. It will only become formal, you would think, once they know Matt Turner is staying or not.
James again touched on that. He said they're going to have to get rid of players. So who's heading for the exit door?
We can talk about Albert Sambi Lokonga. We know that he's not in Mikel Arteta's plans, really. Had a loan spell, I think, in the second half of last season with Crystal Palace. It's Burnley who remain in talks with Arsenal over the signing of Sambi Lokonga. The deal under discussion, we think, is for a season-long loan with an option to buy, but it's one of those deals that the option to buy could become an obligation to buy depending on the number of appearances he would make during that season-long loan. Now, Burnley boss Vincent Kompany knows him very, very well. Lokonga played under Vincent Kompany at Anderlecht. Vincent Kompany was the manager of Anderlecht when Anderlecht sold Albert Sambi Lokonga to Arsenal, and he actually once described Albert Sambi Lokonga, did Vincent Kompany, as the new Yaya Toure. No pressure. But that's how highly Vincent Kompany rates Albert Sambi Lokonga. Look, he wasn't part of the Arsenal squad for the pre-season tour of the United States. So that was a big telltale sign with regard to Lokonga. He spent the second half of last season, as I mentioned, on loan at Crystal Palace. And a loan, usually, you know, when a club tries to do a loan and they're thinking, shall we do a permanent instead? We want to bring some money in. I think the loan with the option, potentially to an obligation, would probably work for Arsenal simply because Lokonga's still got 3 years left on his contract. So if the loan doesn't turn into an obligation and he comes back, they can still, you know, demand a certain transfer fee because he'll still have 2 years left on his contract.
What about Nicola Pepe? What's going on with him?
Very interesting, isn't it? He was the record signing, the club record signing for Arsenal, until, of course, Declan Rice came along. But it was £72 million from Lille in 2019. Now, we understand that Besiktas are pushing to sign Nicolas Pepe now. Talks ongoing between the clubs over a deal. Pepe, though, is into the final year of his contract. That's where the difficulty arises for Arsenal, how much they could command in a transfer fee. And he joined, as I said, 4 years ago now. Hasn't worked out for him at all. Couple of loan spells, didn't turn into permanent moves for him. He's back at Arsenal, wasn't on the US tour, and now Arsenal looking to get him out of the club.
I want to talk Chelsea. Breaking news a bit earlier, Levi Colwill signing an extended deal. How significant is this?
Sometimes keeping the players you want to keep are just as important as the players bringing in. This is a big deal for Chelsea, and you know, we've looked at deals with Chelsea and the big contracts they've given them last season, and questions have been raised about that. I don't think there's many questions raised here. 6-year deal plus a 1-year option. Maurizio Pochettino wanted to keep him. It was one of his key points, the things he wants for next season, his new look Chelsea. You know, we know Maurizio Pochettino likes bringing up academy players, and this is one so highly regarded. He's got a European under-21 winners medal. He came back with that. Now, we know Brighton really wanted him as well, but he did a social media message last night thanking the Brighton fans. So obviously Chelsea fans thinking then, right, it's nearly time to get this announcement. They've now got this announcement. So he is going to be a Chelsea player for the long term. And when you hear Maurizio Pochettino talk about him on the tour of America, saying he can be one of the greatest centre-backs in England, that's pressure, but it's some praise.
Yeah, it is indeed. All right, let's take a break then, gentlemen. Loads to fit in the next part. We're going to talk about West Ham. James Ward-Prowse, do they want him? Do they not want him? We'll discuss that. And also, Jurgen Klopp, he's made some comments, interesting comments, about the Saudi Pro League. We'll talk about that too. See you in a moment. Hello again, this is the Transfer Show. Arsenal in action tonight. They play Monaco in the Emirates Cup. Just going to reiterate some headlines that we heard just before the break. Declan Rice will start, make his Emirates debut. Aaron Ramsdale starts in goal. We know what's going on with the goalkeeping situation. Jurrien Timber starts as well. Gabriel Jesus out, not in the squad. He has a knee injury, so we'll try and find out a bit more about how serious that is. And Eddie Nketiah will captain Arsenal tonight. Guest of honour, not Jurgen Klopp, Arsene Wenger. Now I'm going to talk about Jurgen Klopp. Michael, he's had plenty to say about the Saudi Pro League today, so tell us.
Yeah, I think the big gripe, issue, and what Jurgen Klopp is talking about is the Saudi Arabian window is open three weeks longer than the transfer deadline here, which is September the 1st here in England. And he said that it's not helpful, and UEFA and FIFA must find a solution. There's so many ways to look at this, isn't there? I mean, Liverpool have made around 52 million from selling players to the Saudi Pro League over the last...
So happy to take the Saudi money.
Yeah, I mean, I can see his point as well, because, he's thinking about it in the sense that he doesn't want to lose key players, and other Premier League managers won't want to lose key players. I think we've seen in the past, when other leagues are maybe still open, that the players who have left the Premier League are players maybe surplus to requirements. And there might be the concern here that there are still players who might be tempted to go to the Saudi Pro League, but the English... European domestic window has closed.
But who put the Premier League in charge? It's a world game. Why does it have to fit in with what we want? Because the Premier League's very happy to go around the world and take players. Why can't other leagues do that to us?
Well, football is a global sport. Not every league starts in August and not everyone finishes in May. So, as this is Jurgen Klopp calling on UEFA and FIFA. But it's a very interesting one, and I genuinely believe he's brought something up here which has got me thinking in terms of when we cover transfer deadline day and the day before. A lot of the transfers and deals we talk about now are players who have to move on, joining clubs on loan with obligations, with options, because they're no longer required by their clubs. Will we see a difference in our final few days, August the 31st, September the 1st?
We
we'll
will.
wait and see.
I think we will. Darmish,
I think
your
it's
view.
interesting, though, because there are always very different dates for these windows to close. Has there got to be a uniform date throughout of the whole world where everyone says this is where you can?
Because leagues play in different times of the year.
So that's where the issue is going to arise. But Michael said there, you've had other leagues who have finished later than the Premier League, but the Premier League probably won't feel as threatened simply because it might be the Turkish league that finishes later, and they're not going to be able to spend 50, 60 million pounds on players usually. Whereas it just feels like that the Saudi Pro League and the Saudi transfer business so far has kind of changed the dynamic of the transfer window.
Like the Premier League did when it first came into being.
Hence why the Premier League and other leagues, it should be said as well, it's just not Jurgen Klopp. I'm sure Jurgen Klopp has spoken about it. I'm sure other managers will privately or publicly be saying this is a bit of a danger for us because they're going to be left exposed to mega money potentially coming in, key players having their heads turned and wanting to go, and then having no opportunity at all to be able to replace those players.
But surely they don't have to sell that player, do they? So 2.5 weeks after our window closes, Saudi comes in with a massive bid for a key player. You just say, no, he can't go.
Of course, you can say no.
Look at Mitrovic.
Yeah, because if your head is, the managers will say, we can say what we like. Oh, that player is not going, but they cannot control if a player's head has been turned. These are human beings who are being offered millions and millions of pounds. Of course, they're going to be thinking, I'm never going to get this kind of money again. I want to consider this move. Whereas the manager of the club is saying, I can't let you go simply because I can't bring in a replacement for you.
And another thing as well, when European football starts, they've got to do those registrations, European football registrations. I think Pep Guardiola even alluded to the fact he wasn't particularly keen to lose Riyad Mahrez, but because of the commitment and the loyalty he gave, he kind of granted it, and it was good money. I think the key is, like I said, it's the concern about the players you don't want to lose.
But don't we in this part of the world, Western Europe, just have to suck it up? There is a threat there, but that's tough because we have been the threat in years gone by. Don't we just have to suck it up?
I think the general consensus and agreement here is that we've got now a league that is not going to go away. I spoke to a very high executive from AC Milan last week, and he said that there'll be one of the top 5 leagues in world football in a matter of years because you're just not going to stop it. So, very interesting to see what happens.
Well, let's be honest. Why have we got all the best players in the world? Because we pay more. And if someone else pays more, that's where they'll end up going, surely.
That's the danger, and that's what the obvious worry is for managers like Jurgen Klopp and other managers who will see their players and think, how are we going to keep them now? Because they found it hard to do just that. Yes, I mean, you talk about the Mitrovic situation. Fulham have been very strong on that. He's not going anywhere, and if he does, it's £52 million. So far, they've not wanted to raise that £52 million, but the impact that that's had on Mitrovic, because he's been very clear that he wanted to take up this opportunity, and then suddenly the club has got an unhappy player on their hands.
Yeah, okay. Much more on this at 7 o'clock. We're going to really get into it. I want to talk West Ham and this James Ward-Prowse situation again, though, Dharmesh. What's going on with West Ham? Are they going to get Ward-Prowse? Are they going to get rid of Scamacca?
It's lots on and off yesterday. It's very, very interesting what was going on with James Ward-Prowse, and it changed so quickly. The information we have is that West Ham are looking at alternatives to James Ward-Prowse, but significantly, we are told they have not given up on signing him. Look, Southampton rejected a bid worth £30 million. It was £27 million initial payment, £3 million in performance-related add-ons. It prompted West Ham to walk away from the deal. That bid was described to us as take it or leave it to Southampton. Southampton's valuation closer to £40 million. But when you hear phrases like take it or leave it, is that almost putting pressure on the potential selling club? All right, we're walking away if you're not going to bring your price down, because we think for a deal to get done, we think that Southampton would have to compromise on the price, which, as it stands, they're not prepared to do.
10 seconds, quick, Scamacca, what's going on?
Yeah, Atalanta want him. Inter Milan want him. His preference looks like it could be Inter Milan. Both, we think, are prepared to pay about €30 million.
So much to fit in. At 7 o'clock, we're going to go big on all of that. So much and more. Jurgen Klopp, what do people think about what he said about the Saudi Pro League? Has he got a point? Or has he? That's coming up at 7. Sky Sports News is next. I will see you in just a moment.